grew up in a kind of queer scene, everything was kind of like for a long time. When I was started socializing in Manchester, everything was just kind of very fluid, and we didn't say it was polyamorous or codify it in any kind of way
Yeah.
like that, but we just were kind of a group of kind of I was in a sort of social group that hang on, just let me my bloody microphone. Sorry about that. So what was I saying? Yeah. Um, so everything is a bit more fluid, when you're that sort of queer. But I did have a long-term relationship with a girl, and we lived together. But we ended up just becoming mates in the end, because that's just how it panned out. And we were like, are we a couple or what? It was a bit like
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
there wasn't any kind of big breakup kind of thing. I think when I came out about 3 years ago, the person I was with at the time kind of knew, but it was just not official. I didn't say anything about changing my name or anything like that, but they knew that this is how I express myself.
So
So it was
did that kind of affect the relationship in any way, negatively?
what the bit identifying as female or
Well, yeah, just I guess just kind of the stress of what you're going through, and
well, yeah, I knew that I couldn't see. I knew that the relationship had to change for me to, because when you embark on a transition or medical pathway, whatever it is, you have to focus a lot on yourself for a bit. And I don't think it's fair necessarily. I mean, it might work for some people,
yeah,
but for me, I thought I don't want to make anybody secondary to that in my, if I'm with somebody, I'm with somebody. And then I think if you go through a transition process, I think you always do. It never kind of ends in a way. You're always kind of going through stuff, aren't you? But
yeah.
to make that first move of changing your name and your identity in a legal sense, yeah, yes, it's different for everybody. I can't talk too personally about it because I'm conscious of the fact that the person I'm talking about might be
Might be
listening.
watching. Yeah,
But
whereas
yeah,
in my
so,
case,
so
neither of them live in this country, so it's probably very unlikely that they're ever going to watch this. But
yeah,
I think we had a little bit of a glitch at the beginning of the live there, where it wasn't feeding through properly into YouTube. So
but
just to repeat, what we're doing is a Thursday night live. We're still going to be doing the Sunday afternoons, but that may not be live. It may be pre-recorded, and that's going to be out news that's been going on in that week. So we're just kind of experimenting with a Thursday night live and talking about topics which affect trans people, not necessarily talking about stuff that's in the news, or we really don't want to talk about gender crits on Thursday night. It's more about talking about
well,
issues
yeah,
for trans people, I think, is what we're trying to do.
I think in our first podcast we kind of concentrated on the news. We do concentrate on the news a lot
But we
because that
concentrate
gives
on the
us
news,
some.
and the news is full of gender critical stories. So we're trying to
Yeah,
do something a bit
that's
different.
but we do like talk about celebratory stories. I really like
Yeah,
that story
yeah. We
about
try and end on on a happy story, don't we?
Darcy, the
Yeah,
singer.
good
Yeah, and
news.
that was a really uplifting story. But anyway, going back to relationships, I'm always conscious because I still know the people. I still kind of have a relationship with the people I've had kind of romantic relationships with. So
Yeah.
it's kind of hard for me to talk about as a past tense. But I've always like I think one thing I never did until recently was had any kind of relationship with a man because
So
I'd
have
seen
all
it.
your past relationships been with women?
Yeah, when it comes to long-term
Yeah, me
companionship,
too. Same thing.
but when it comes to sex, it was always kind of like because I,
Ambiguous.
s- I saw it as complete. I mean, not mechanical, but it was more kind of um, less less strings attached, let's say.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, but now I've had sort of on and off relationships with guys because I can relate to that more now. I can relax in my own skin a bit more in that situation.
Yeah, so
So
as I was saying at the beginning, and I don't think this was on the live, I've not had a relationship since I transitioned. It's been a
mm,
few years. I think the reason is because I was coming out of like some bad relationships. I was focusing on myself. Um,
mm,
Pretty messy divorce. Nothing to do with being trans, by the way. The divorce was just like because the relationship didn't work out. It wasn't really related to being trans at the time. I wasn't out at that time. I think it was kind of me not being happy in that relationship and me not expressing myself and being my true, honest self, which probably put a lot of stress on the relationship, and it eventually didn't work out. So I kind of avoided them since then. I don't go on dating sites. I just avoid the topic altogether. So we had a really long conversation the other night about this, and I don't know, it's probably not just me that suffers this. I'm sure there's a lot of trans people in the same situation where they may have been in a relationship pre-transition, and then they've transitioned, and now they're kind of re-navigating the world of relationships and what it means to them. Because I feel as though my sexuality has changed slightly as well. Whether it's actually changed or whether it's my kind of, I'm more confident to explore now. I would say now I'm probably bisexual, but before I wasn't.
I think,
maybe that's not changed. It's probably not changed. It's probably me allowing myself to do what I would never allow myself to do before.
I would say that. I mean, I've always been clear with everybody I've been in a relationship with about my bisexuality, my kind of way I express my sexuality, and I've always been quite feminine, even when I identified as male before I came out as trans. But that my trans journey was kind of, I came out, then went back in. You know what I mean? Because it's because of the pressures and stuff. So it's never been very as simple as one thing led to another kind of thing. There's no like linear path. This happened, then that happened. Then it's all like it's like a circular thing
nebulous.
for me. But,
it's nebulous, isn't it?
Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, I use like dating apps and stuff like that. And most of the time, it just amuses me as some of the messages that you get, and it can be a bit difficult on a dating scene as being trans, because you know a lot of the men that are contacting you are contacting because you're trans. They're not contacting you. It's a reality that if they know you're trans, they want the physical you that is. You know what I mean?
So it may not be for relationship reasons, is what we're saying.
Yeah. Well, I'm not. I mean, you've got to start somewhere. But what I'm saying is they'll go on a roundabout way to ask if you're a dominant or top, meaning you're gonna be able to.
Okay, where's my red card? Get my red card ready.
Yeah. So that's an issue I have with a lot of things. But like what you were saying about this story about lesbians. Trans women forcing themselves on lesbians.
Yeah, I mean that is the narrative that a lot of the gender critics come out with. That trans women force themselves upon lesbians and force them to have relationships or sex with them.
That you mentioned earlier, is completely apocryphal anyway, because that was the one on the BBC website, and I think it's still there, and I just don't understand. I mean, I can imagine there might be an isolated incident of that, because anything like that could happen in any given situation. But the idea that there's an army of
what they kind of say is that trans women tell lesbians that they're transphobic if they won't have relationships with them. I mean, it's like no, I mean, it doesn't happen.
I mean, like there was that case of that dating app that I forgot about. What in it? There was I can't remember the name of it now, but there was a dating app and it specifically said it's women only, and there was trans women there, and then some of the women complained. I mean, you don't have to reply to it. Nobody's forcing you to do anything on an app.
Yeah, exactly.
If you get talking to somebody,
nobody's forcing anybody to go dating with anybody because of the trans or because they're not trans.
This is the dichotomy for TERFs, because on one hand they always say we can always tell when you're a trans, or we'll say we can tell you're a man because that's how they think. And on the other hand, they'll say we're sneaking into women's spaces undetected. I mean, which one is it? Are we invisible, or are we super visible, or are we duplicitous? It's like it doesn't make any sense.
Or are they just making
to believe all those things? So the only conclusion you can come to is that they have an agenda to make us seem like a sexual threat, which is one of the main TERFy agendas, which I don't want to go into because we said we wouldn't talk about it. But
I just wanted to talk about that issue of being accused of forcing lesbians to have a relationship with her. I mean, it's just totally does not happen. I don't know of any cases or any individuals
Well, that ironically, well,
who've
not
done that.
ironically, is it? I might be using the ironic word in the Alanis Morissette way there, but I've been in a club and a woman has come up to me, and she's not known that I'm trans, and I can tell she doesn't know I'm trans because of the way she's approaching me,
Hmm.
and so you just there's just vibe in there, and I don't know how to define that attraction, but I am attracted to women, and I'd like to
But
find
well, I mean, how would you handle that situation in terms of
well,
telling
I don't
somebody
really
that you're
think.
trans? Would you tell them before it went any further?
Well, no, because there's no reason. If you're in a bar and somebody's coming up to say, "Can I buy you a drink?"
Yeah.
There's nothing. There's no promise to do anything, is it? But
No, but
you do.
that's kind of like the very beginning of whatever's going on. I mean, at what stage would you consider telling somebody?
But this is just an isolated incident I'm talking about where
Yeah.
somebody, because I was in a place in Manchester and this girl's quite what you might call a butch girl, which I quite like, and she's kind of like a bit of swagger.
Mm.
And I kind of knew that energy. And I was like, oh, right. I wonder if she is clocking me or is she. And it's going, these things going through my mind.
So
So,
there's like questions running
so
through your mind, running what's going on. Yeah.
yeah. It's like, I wonder what scenario is going to play out here because if I tell her I'm trans, could that change the dynamic? Could that make her feel somehow cheated in some way? I
Mm.
don't know. But then I did tell her, and she was like, "Oh wow," she was like pretty cool about it. But then
Yeah,
I
I think
noticed,
most people would have that reaction. I can't imagine people in those kind of situations having a bad reaction.
yeah. But I can be quite. See, when I first started going out in Manchester, I was very androgynous, and I didn't really do the whole kind of makeup in the same way that I do now. So people thought I was like a boyish girl a lot of the time,
Mm.
especially when I was younger, because I had naturally long black hair, and I was a bit of a goth. That was another subculture that I was part of, the like Manchester goth emo scene.
Yeah.
As I got older, those worlds intersect with the fetish scene, and you notice that the kind of people that wear PVC and latex and all that kind of stuff are kind of in the same, you know what I mean? They're in the same gene pool kind of thing. Mm.
Yes.
Uh,
So
but I,
we've had a couple of comments there. Durham Red
oh, good.
has said good
We've
evening
got
to us.
some.
So hi to you.
There's somebody. Yes. Hi,
So yeah, if
Durham.
anybody wants to chat on the live chat, just go ahead and ask
Yeah,
questions if you want.
this is just a
We're
bit of an
trying we're trying
experiment,
yeah we're
really.
trying to
So
interact
if
with people who are watching a bit more.
So we're just gonna do a live thing where we take bits of the chat if people bother.
Yeah, you don't have
I
to,
know people
obviously.
watch, but a lot of people watch and don't chat, so it's
Yeah,
kind of whatever. We'll just roll with it.
just roll with it.
But we're just talking about this idea of being dating as a trans woman. So like a lot in most of my time in my life in work and all that, I'm not thinking about being a trans woman. I'm just thinking about getting on with. But in that dating situation, in like say you're out clubbing or you're out in a bar, then it does matter because people are interacting with you, not necessarily because they want to get off with you, but when alcohol's involved, when there's, a bit of an atmosphere, like when I've been to parties and stuff, I've had men come up to me and literally just say to me, um, are you trans? And I'm like, it's like point blank. It's like they
It's
have
like no
no,
warning shot straight in there.
no, like, well, am I? I don't care. What,
How do
why?
you?
What
I
do you
mean, how
want?
do you answer that question?
So my answer is, what do you want? Do you want advice? Do you want to interview
Yeah, do you
me?
want to know what time the next bus is? I mean, what's the question about?
But we
Yeah,
know why they're asking. They're asking because they want to profile you as a sexual
they're trying to
conquest,
understand
possibly.
what they're dealing with, aren't they? That's what they're doing. Yes.
But I'm not very approachable sometimes because I know I'm all sweetness and light, on here, but but
Yeah,
sometimes when I'm
because
out,
last time we were out in Manchester, you were walking around shouting to people with a megaphone, so I can understand
yeah,
why you weren't approachable on that
well,
particular
yeah.
occasion.
But I do have my guard up and I think it might have been because of past experiences. Like if I'm in a bar or I'm kind of looking over my shoulder a bit because I have been harassed and I've been it's like, you can see it as minor things, but I'm always aware that you know, the the atmosphere could change or whatever. So I don't I kind of, you know, in a way a cat makes itself bigger
Yeah, yeah.
to protect itself. I kind of
So
do
you do
that in
that. You
social
kind of like
situations. I
your
use my, I talk with my hands a lot, and I
your
don't,
claws
you know
come
what I
out.
mean? And I think that is why, because I'm trying to own a bit of my space there. So it's a bit, but then I don't know. I've been like when I've been to fetish clubs and things like that, which I, you know, it's like a part of the scene I'm involved in. Um, they are some of the safest spaces you could ever possibly go in
So explain why that's a safe place to be in.
because the place has rules. Like they know that there could be because the whole thing is set up from the point of view of intimacy and um, sex might happen in that space, or or you know, it's some kind of interaction where it's more than just, you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah,
Without
yeah,
being too explicit.
yeah.
So the owners of and the managers and the people that work there have got their eye on people, and they can spot somebody who might be a bit of a
So anybody who's
problem.
causing a problem
Yeah,
is kicked out.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that's why a lot of
So
cis
that's
women
probably a lot
like
of
those
that's probably a
places.
lot safer than being in a bar in Manchester. I would have thought.
Well, it's somewhere a woman could go on her own, and she
Yeah.
would feel safe. Whereas you wouldn't do that necessarily or feel welcome even. And obviously, there's no pressure on anybody to do anything. That's not the point. The point is
No.
that, and a lot of kind of like people on the trans spectrum. I call it the trans spectrum, but you're
The
talking anywhere
trans
from between
spectrum.
like weekend cross dressers to people who, you know, who identify who've gone through transition and now identify as women. So and that is a spectrum because people go to those places to feel safe. So I've met people that who are just coming out and they've not never, you know, they're not sure that they might be keeping a secret from
Yeah.
work and
So
their other
this
parts of their life.
this topic of cross dressing. Okay.
Mm.
So I know a lot of people probably go through a phase where they do a bit of cross dressing, and it's normally
Mm.
kind of before they go through transition. It's like I'm not saying everybody does it. I
Mm.
mean, I think a lot of people may experiment, may try because it's kind of related to their identity in a way.
Mm. Well,
So
it's we know those gender markers, don't we, from a very early age, and when
yeah,
they're instilled into us. This is what when people talk about gender ideology, to me, the real gender ideology is that thing where parents will decide outfits, even decor, and the whole thing about a child's life based on what genitalia it has.
yeah. But the thing where I was going with cross dressing was, if you look at what the gender critics say about that, they always put it down as it's a perversion, it's
Mm.
because someone's I don't know, a paedophile, etc. They come up with all these weird and wonderful
Well, it can
reasons
go
why
to that
people
extreme.
do it.
Yeah,
But I think in a lot of cases where if someone is trans who's cross-dressing in like the early stages, it's not because of those kind of reasons that they quote. I mean, it's more to do with experimenting and
yeah.
exploring your gender. I guess
Well,
a guy who continues to cross-dress throughout their life and who's not trans, maybe they're just doing it for I don't know, kinks or whatever. I don't know.
yeah. Well, I
But
mean, there's
it's just
nothing
part of
wrong
that.
with
It's
that.
just no. But we've got
That's
all
the
this kind of religious and social pressure on us
well,
saying it's bad and you shouldn't do it and all this nonsense. It's
well, exactly. But the thing is, the way that fetishes are sometimes associated with wrongdoing is because young boys, I'd say more than girls, when they gravitate towards the feminine or they're seen to be wearing feminine, and this thing becomes something they're shamed for. It's like that is you don't do that. Stop doing that. You do this, and then they put it they bury it somewhere. So they always associate that with some kind of excitement of doing something wrong. So perhaps that is the birthplace of all kind of ideas of erotic fetish because it has to be associated with something like it's always we talk about words like naughty. We use that when we
Mm.
talk about sex because we compartmentalize it away from our performed self in the real world. But there'll be parts of ourselves that we don't need the public to know about, and then we keep them into ourselves, and then you could become secretive. And I know people that hide things because it's not necessarily because they're ashamed of themselves. It's because they know they'll be judged if they express it
So it's
explicitly.
kind of
Because
like the fear of what's going to happen if they were to express it or tell people that don't know
well, if
about
you
it, I
if
guess.
you've built up if you've built a whole personality about one being one kind of person, something like that can change the dynamic of the way people
Yeah,
perceive you.
absolutely.
But I don't think the fetish thing and the whole idea of dressing for pleasure and all that. I think there's no inherently bad thing about any of that. It's like obviously like because like in the fetish scene that I know, a lot of the cis women that go, they do it because they can't express that anywhere else. It's like they wear like latex and crazy wigs and whatever. Some of them dress up like characters from Star Wars. I don't know. Whatever turns you on, it's not what a fetish is very personal or whatever, but it's not. It can never be associated with wrongdoing in that way. Now, are the perverts out there that do they do who are like criminal and sex pasts? Of course there are, because it's a lot. It's just but that exists. But if you think that there's a certain kind of person or there's a certain look of an abuser, that is when you get going down into a dark road because it lets abusers go unchecked because you think that abuse looks like a certain thing. You're more likely to be abused by somebody wearing a shirt and tie or somebody in the police, for Christ's sake, than you are with somebody wearing latex and leather. There's a really amazing song that I like by the Cosmetics, and it's I get a feeling of pleasure when I wear black leather. And I always sing that into my friend Fee, I always sing that. Because it's just because it's that idea, the idea that the tactileness and
Mm.
that's what it's all about. It's a sensory thing.
Yeah, so
So
we,
yeah.
we have a comment from Rebecca. I'll just read it out. So all women have trouble with this, I think. It's why many of us don't go out without a group. We're out to have fun. If alone, we become a target. So, I mean, that's, to the
Well, yeah, I
previous
mean, it's
comments we were
even
talking.
nowadays, like if you're out and you see a woman on her own, even if it's just, you think, oh, she's waiting for a man or she's waiting for somebody to meet her. She might not be. She might just be wanting to go out for a drink on her own. But it's like, you see, we think we're more progressive in this society. We think we're more, forward thinking in the West or in modern societies, but we're not because we still look at women on their own and we think they need we say you are because I have done it. I've seen a girl on her own in a bar, and I thought, I wonder if she's all right. And I don't know why. I would if I saw a man on his own, I wouldn't approach him and go, "Are you all right? Do you need a bit of company?"
Yeah, that could be potentially dangerous. Yeah.
But that's the kind of protective thing, I suppose. But women on their own stand out, and if you're walking home alone, if you're doing anything alone,
Yeah, absolutely.
it's not this is I used to take stupid risks when I used to live in Manchester. I lived near the city centre, so it wasn't too far of a walk, so it was too close to get an Uber. So at night I'd walk home,
Wow.
and I was thinking shit, I was half baked and I was walking down a canal towpath,
Walking down a canal towpath, middle of the night.
and
Not
I
not
and I
good.
was like so you think about, but I kind of, it's only in retrospect that I had that fear of it. I mean, that's one of the differences. You see, one of the arguments TERFs will always come up with, it's like you didn't grow up as female, so you don't share the experiences. I agree with that. We don't. That is an actual reality. If I didn't, I might have felt like Frida or whatever it is that makes me trans, but I didn't fear being in social situations in the same way as girls do. That's a reality, and I think a lot of girls, a lot more girls than you probably think have experienced some kind of harassment and by being on their own in public places. and that's not a fault of anything but the culture we live in, the kind of culture that promotes people like Andrew Tate,
Yeah, I
which
mean,
is
yeah, we don't need to get into that story, do we?
not really. But I'm glad. I just keep thinking about Greta, and I wonder
Yeah,
what
it
she's
was.
thinking of that
Well,
because she did the world a great service there, and
she did.
probably most effective thing she's ever done.
So, I mean, when you're out and about in Manchester, we've been there a couple of times on nights out. Do you feel safe walking around the streets of Manchester on a Friday, Saturday night? Do you
I
feel do you
do. I
feel
mean,
safe? Do you feel safer in the like Canal Street area or like the?
no, 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 actually, no, I don't, because the Canal Street area has become a bit. I mean, maybe it always has been, and it's. I don't know. I mean, anywhere you go on nights out, or if you're gonna get people like drunken lads, and drunken girls sometimes can be just as obnoxious, and it's like it's really hard to profile anything like that. But I say I feel pretty safe when I'm with friends.
Yeah, if you're
You
in
know,
a group, a small group, or a couple of you, I think it's probably okay, isn't it? But I'm just thinking, like when you're walking around the kind of like the northern quarter, it feels a bit intimidating at times because it's kind of like, it's dark and a bit run
yeah.
down. So it's like, well, there's lots of like little side streets and back streets, and you feel a bit on edge there. But
Mm,
if you compare that to, walking around Canal Street in that area, there's loads of people around.
mm.
Yeah, it feels a lot safer. But
I
just
think it
just getting
might be
back to that kind of
because
relationship question. I mean, have you been in bars on Canal Street where you've been approached by guys and girls? I mean,
well,
how
I wouldn't. I don't really go around Canal
no.
Street so much anymore unless there's like a festival type thing on. But I tend to go. I mean, the function of the gay village in Manchester was like a safe space for like, and I think as things have changed socially and the city's become more gentrified, gay men are more likely to go elsewhere now, and those spaces have been neglected. I don't think there's the same booming trade in clubs and bars as there used to be. Even before COVID, it was going downhill. So people have their own little kind of club nights now, and I'd like to go to drag nights, and I like to go to like art, poetry events. Maybe it's me that's changed. I don't know,
So you
but
don't really focus going out on
I
on
was
being in the
thinking
Canal
about,
Street area. You go anywhere.
but I think the gay village still has a place because like there's still a lot of homophobia out there. And that's like it still exists. There's still
But I mean, it used to be that you would go to those areas because it was safe because you're LGBT. But
yeah.
now I think you can go to pretty much anywhere in Northern Quarter of Manchester and have that same feeling. If
Yeah,
you go to
Manchester's always been like that
yeah, so
though,
if you go
but
to that club that we went to, the Feel Good Club, I mean that's
yeah,
very LGBT
yeah,
inclusive.
it's a
And
queer
if you
space.
yeah, it's a queer space. When you're in there, you could actually be on Canal Street. I mean, it feels the same.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just kind of wondering, is it really what is the point of Canal Street when the whole city is safe in that respect, or it's becoming safer in that respect?
Oh, it's
I
a
mean,
good
it's a good
question,
thing,
really.
really, isn't it?
It's a good thing, but I don't know what it means economically for the area because, like,
But would you
if
prefer to be able to go anywhere and feel included and welcome, or would you prefer to go to kind of like the
well, of
traditional
course,
places that are that they're actually set up for LGBT people to go to? What?
yeah. Obviously, you want to feel safe everywhere.
Yeah.
But there are certain places to avoid. Like if there's a
Well, yeah. There's other places that you wouldn't never
we
go.
live in I live in a city where there's two Premier League football
Yeah, you
clubs,
need to be
and
careful in
when
those places,
that can be a problem.
especially on
If you're
match
in
day.
town on a match day, that could be. But you see that this is not an issue for this is an issue for everyone, not
Hmm.
just gay, like trans, whatever. It's like when I was a teenage goth, I got the same because people look at anything that's different or weird, or what they think is weird. So that's another thing about being trans, right? You can be a gay man and just blend in, and you'll never experience any kind of hate crime unless you you know that is something you're expressing about yourself. But if you're visible as trans, like a I mean, I don't know, it's not the same as being a goth, but the people that pick on that are the same people that would have a go at me for being trans. I know it's the same energy. They don't understand anything about me being trans. They just know that perhaps I look a bit different, or they've identified that I don't fit a gender stereotype or whatever. So because hate people often scoff about hate crimes and say, "Oh yeah, what's the point in reporting hate crimes? Nobody ever does anything or anything like that." But I think it is important because there's a famous case in Manchester of Sophie Lancaster, and she was beaten to death. I mean, it's a horrible. If you look into the story, it's not nice. It's an extreme case, but the police set up like an hate crimes department, and they asked the local kids like they were being targeted, what can we do, and they said, well, we never report anything because we don't feel like when we're getting abused in the street, it's just part of daily life. It's just something they accepted because it's just part of being in a big city. But if the police see a pattern of things, and people see a pattern of abuse, and they might be able to link it to one or two people, you know what I mean? It's coming from a very specific place, that kind of aggression. So yeah, I think when you're talking about being safe in a big city, you never, there's always going to be, you're talking about a whole bunch of people from loads of different backgrounds, and we're never going to all get on, are we?
No, no.
But
But it kind
we
of it
don't.
kind of plays into that fear of relationships and had starting relationships and going and meeting people that you've not met yet. You might meet someone on a dating site and then you got to go and meet them somewhere.
Oh God, Christ, the amount
Yeah.
of
So I
things
mean
that I
that's terrifying to think. You think about what could go wrong and it kind of prevents you from going. You know what I mean?
well, I've been in some really dodgy situations, like where I've not told people where I'm going. I've kept it a secret from my parents, and this is why.
So you've met somebody in
It,
a dating site and then you've agreed to meet them
yeah,
somewhere.
yeah, because this is why.
But you've no
This is
idea who
why.
you're meeting. I mean, it could be potentially a dangerous situation.
Yeah, exactly. People don't think about this. This is why um, it's important to talk about as trans women, because we do meet, and if you're not completely out, you might conceal where you're going. People might not know where you are. These are all factors that could lead to putting yourself in danger. And yeah, I just thought about that because I was thinking about how unsafe, what kind of weird situations I was putting myself in as quite a young person because
So
to
how do
run
you
away.
what do you
I
do? What do you do to try and protect yourself from those potentially bad situations?
well, I don't know. You can't. I mean, you just kind of if you're going to meet somebody for sex,
Well,
right?
not for sex,
You
just
know,
for maybe just for a date or something.
well, I mean, you go and meet in a public place. That's the first bit
Meet
of
in a coffee shop and
practical
during the day,
advice.
some kind of thing.
But even that wouldn't necessarily be a fail-safe. It's just part of dating is that it's
But
almost
I think
factored
the
into
thing
the
I
way.
worry about is that you might get in one of those dating sites. You might get targeted because you're trans, and because
Yeah.
somebody wants to
Hmm. Well,
be
I've never had
be
that.
abusive to you. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but you could be
I've had,
you could be walking into a setup in some cases.
yeah, that's no, that's obviously something that has never happened to me, but I can see where you're coming from. My, my main issue though with dating, it's a bit more mundane because a lot of the time people just bore me to death because I go on a date and I'm like, come on, have you got any interest? Because
But
I could,
you can see why I've maybe been avoiding relationships because I've got all these fears going on in my head. I mean,
yeah,
it's all playing into that fear.
yeah,
I really
well,
don't like the idea of using a dating site because I just don't like dating sites. I prefer
mm,
to take the kind of attitude that I'll meet somebody in my normal everyday life at some point, in some
well,
circumstance. But maybe that's never going to happen.
what's
I don't know.
the more likely scenario is you'll meet somebody and they'll bore you to death and you'll want them to leave. That's what happens to me all the time. They'll talk a big talk online and go, "Oh yeah, I like this and I like doing that," and you're beautiful, darling.
Oh, so you're talking about on a date now?
No, I'm talking about while you talking on the app like Grinder or whatever it
Oh
is.
no, okay,
So
right, yeah.
so you get all these kind of weird messages, and like you get some really interesting messages actually, and some of them are very wordy, and some people make you laugh. And then if
So
you get
are you
chatting,
always the recipient of the messages, or are you sending out messages as
no,
well?
I do send messages if I see somebody I like, but
Hmm.
I always see. I've been on a few dates, and most of the outcome has been like, well, I'm gonna get off now because
Yeah, I'm going to catch
there's
my
something on.
bus.
There's the Mrs. Brown's voice is on, so I've got to go.
Oh, God, that must have been like the worst date ever if you're going home to watch Mrs. Brown Boys.
Yeah,
God, can
exactly.
you imagine how bad the
That's
date must have
what.
been for that?
That's where I was going with that. But most of the time, I said I met a few. I mean, I don't want to go into detail
No,
about
no,
what
no,
I've
no,
done or
no.
who I've not
No
necessarily,
details.
but things happen. You get your leg over, and that's about it. And there's no more to it than that. And it's like I know what I want. I know how to get it, and simple as.
Okay,
But
you
most of
seem
the
to be moving the conversation towards sex. I was talking about relationships.
well, it's not. You can't decouple those two
Well, you
things. I mean,
can.
you're talking about dating apps. You're not talking about sending somebody love letters,
So
eh?
hang on. So the only time you go on dates is through dating apps. You don't just like meet people and say, "Oh, let's go and have a
Nah, very, very.
something." On them.
No, because if I'm meeting people, I'm meeting them socially. I don't want to be messing around. I don't want to douche for
Okay,
that.
let's say let's no, let's say you're out. You're out with some friends and you meet somebody while you're out with your friends or on doing whatever you're doing. Maybe you're out somewhere at a conference or something. You're doing something like that, and you meet
A
somebody.
conference.
Yeah, I know you don't do conferences, do you?
You know what? Me and your lives,
I
Vicky, are
know they're
so
so
different.
different.
I'm talking about getting bummed in fetish clubs, and you're talking about
Hmm.
conferences.
See how this works?
We
No,
have
it
to
doesn't.
edit that.
No, we can leave that in. Okay, how can you? How do you edit a live stream? It's like it's
Sorry,
live. You can't edit it.
sorry.
Yeah,
Well,
I need a
I've
beep.
got a new love. I've got a new love interest anyway.
Red card.
Sorry, I've got a new love interest.
Prince Harry. I think Prince Harry
Prince
is very married, so hands off.
Sarah Warner's has saying hello. Hello, must go. Well, she says hello and then must go.
Hi,
I just
Sarah.
remember she's left the iron on. Oh
Oh
my
God!
God.
Yeah, go quick, run,
Come back. Let us know
come
you're
back and
still
tell us what
alive.
happened.
The thing about this, right? Because this, I know we're talking about relationships and sex and love and all that, but this is a love missive. He loves Megan so much.
Yeah,
It's painful, and I think that's when you. I mean, I only read bits of it
I
so
think
far. Sort of
once Harry met Meghan, Meghan really
Harry
changed his
when Harry met
life.
Megan.
When Harry met Meghan,
Go
really
on, shall we?
changed his life. She had a massive effect on him. You can imagine like this Harry pre Meghan Harry was very kind
Pre,
of full of his kind of
is this a new era like
I
Anno
don't know.
Domini?
I don't
Is
know
it
what the hell I'm talking about, but I think
the pre Megan era?
I think Meghan had a huge effect on it, a positive effect on him.
Is this like the Cambrian explosion?
Oh God!
Well,
Everybody, I hear people complaining about Harry and Meghan. I like them. I really do. I like the couple. I like the pair of them.
it feeds into that thing, doesn't it, of there being warring families in the Game of Thrones or some the game. Have you heard me the Game of Thrones? It just shows you how much I don't pay attention to. But it reminds me of that, and people love anything like that. They'd absolutely love it. It gets them all excited.
Sarah's just
Oh,
come back with what she said before was an example of how to end a boring date. There's not a real iron that she's running off to take care
I
of.
see.
It's
I
like
thought she'd
how she ends a boring date.
I thought Sarah had set fire to her house. Don't forget to share the YouTube link if you're watching, because we're trying to get more dialogue going. And I mean, what was I talking about before? Not Harry. Yeah, so dating is really pretty boring, to be honest. It's very rarely I go on a date and I've met somebody in a bar or a restaurant and I've been totally swept off my feet and thought this is going to be amazing. It's like bring me the second course. The You know what I mean? Get me another bottle of wine. I need
So you're
it.
just there for the food and wine, and then you're going to leave. Is that what
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
saying?
yeah. I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
I like a little bit of a kiss maybe, and I've had my bum felt. That's enough.
And then it's, oh yeah, well, I've got to go now. It was lovely meeting you.
Yeah. But it's kind of, but I like the
I've
date
left the iron on. I
experience.
need to leave.
Yeah, it's a good one. But
It
I
is a
mean,
good one.
imagine
Yeah.
if you're on a date though and you've left the iron on, it's over with by
It's
the
a bit
time you
late. Yeah, because by the time you get
yeah,
home, the house is burnt down. Yeah.
unless you can text someone.
Unless you've got one of those posh irons that switches itself off when it gets too hot.
Who irons these days?
Well,
Come on.
that's another good point, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can't believe we're talking about ironing. So have you not had? I mean, forgive me if I'm prying, but have you not been on dates since you came out and you've
No, not
transitioned?
at all. I've
Not been-
completely avoided all dating and
Oh,
relationships since I came out, since I
you
transitioned.
see, you see, that's never been an option for me. I've always been a tart.
I wasn't going to say
I
that. I
know.
was going to let you say that. Yeah.
No, I embrace. I lean into sluttery, but
I
I
think
don't.
I think part of the problem is because I was living overseas. I was moved traveling around a lot.
Well, don't they have sex
No,
overseas?
England's the only place they have sex. Apparently, no, that's not true. That's definitely not true.
I know they do it.
But yeah, I mean, no, it's all related to me and how I was feeling and what I was going through. Those kind of relationships were off the table, and pretty much still are at the moment. I've not really got to the point where I'm. Maybe the reason why we're having this podcast is because I'm beginning to think about it. I don't know, but
Well,
it's
the
kind
thing
of
is
I'm kind
though,
of coming around to the idea now,
well,
and
the thing they only have. I
discovering that
don't.
I'm actually bisexual. I mean, that's what I've discovered.
Well, you've always been bisexual. It's just
Yeah,
that
but it's something
you've
that I've allowed myself to
yeah.
do. I think I was just no, you're not going there before, but now it's okay.
Well, I don't know why that might be. I mean,
I don't know.
it's
It's a bit
like,
strange.
but I think everybody's somewhere on a bisexual spectrum. I
Yeah.
just think it. I mean, so there are a lot of men,
So I think
right?
with men, if you were to have those thoughts, you'd automatically try to block them in your own brain. I think
There's
you
this
kind of
idea that
wouldn't give yourself permission because it's not the thing that
mm,
men do. That's that sounds very homophobic, and it probably is. But I think
it's
it's like internalized. That's what men do.
yeah, yeah, of course it is. But on another thing, I would say to that is there's this thing that men sometimes feel shame and guilt for thinking about any kind of homosexual activity. It's like that's why they become homophobic because they might be somewhere on that bisexuality spectrum, and then they look at men and they go, "Oh, I shouldn't be feeling like this. I don't want to feel like this." So they'll bury that, and then they'll come into contact with porn, and a lot of the only ways boys growing up into men experience trans or what might be called transsexual
Mm.
is through porn. So when they see trans women on Twitter and they see trans women as the only way they can think about it is it's something to do with sex. And that goes beyond just boys and men because there are women in the GC movement that only think of us as sexual motivated people because we are a porn category. And when you're a porn category, you dehumanize it in a way. And I mean, I've got no issue with anybody doing porn or whatever it is. This is not a moral point. This is just me saying that the way the psychology of men is, codified, if that's the right word, is to think of women sometimes like if you like going back to that whole Andrew Tate thing, and people have been talking about that on the news today.
Yeah.
It's like because they're talking about educating young boys, and I'm
Hmm.
like, no, I mean, yeah, okay, educate young boys, but don't make Andrew Tate the subject because the subject is bigger than that. It's about systemic misogyny. I think systemic misogyny is the root of a
Well,
lot
yeah,
of
that's the thing that needs
transphobia.
to be taught to boys. Well, not taught how to do it, but
There are
taught to
people
be
that they
aware
just
of it.
hate. There are people, there are men specifically that I've met, and they've said to me things like, I wouldn't normally do this kind of thing. I'm not gay.
So
I don't want,
so do you challenge that attitude?
I mean, I wouldn't meet somebody I thought had that
No,
attitude.
but
Really.
if you're in a situation where it's gone so far, and you're now, I don't know, in a situation where you can't leave easily, what do you do when that happens?
Well, I've not been in that particular situation because I wouldn't let it get that far.
Mm.
Because I know that if somebody isn't cool with me on a first date, they're not going to be cool with me after 10. It's not my job to convince somebody I'm something they want. I mean, it's not trans people's jobs to make
So if
men
you hear
feel
that kind of language,
uncomfortable.
you cut them off straight away, do you? Is that what you do?
Yeah, yeah, because it's not my job to make somebody feel comfortable about being with me. If a
Mm.
man says to me, I don't normally do this kind of thing. Will you show me?" It's like I'm not gonna give you an instruction manual. If you, I say that, but on a certain level, if I've been with somebody that's never
I mean, a
had
guy's
that
probably
kind.
saying that to kind of justify it to himself why he's doing it, you know?
Yeah, that's the difference.
Yeah.
If he's saying it because he's like, right, I want to make this nice. I mean, I can see how, yeah, you saying something like that might be interesting, but most of the time, it's kind of like it's like what they're trying to tell you is that this isn't something that I'm not this person really. I'm just doing it
I'm not
because I
this
want to
person
be.
really, but here I am on a date with you. Yeah.
But I fancy trannies, which is what they would say that on any other day. They would use that kind of language, and I know I can guess that they would, because a lot of the guys, I reckon, a lot of the guys that are transphobic on Twitter, I've probably met trans women on dating
Mm.
sites. I mean, I can't prove that, but statistically, it's possible. So,
Yeah.
and you don't know. That's what I'm saying about you don't know who you're dealing with when you're meeting somebody sometimes, because. Um,
Yeah, I mean, you've got no idea who you meet him. It's a bit of a lottery.
yeah. So I mean,
So you would, I mean, you
dating.
just go into that kind of question about who would you date? You would date anybody, I guess, that you're attracted to.
No, anybody? No,
Anybody?
not
No,
anybody.
you would go on a date with anybody you're attracted to because you said you were bisexual. So you would do that. I mean, that's how it
no,
works. That's how it works for me. I think if I can look at a guy and think, yeah, he's nice. Or I could go on a date with him. Or look at a girl and think, yeah, she's nice. And
well,
then we've
I,
got this kind of situation where a lot of trans people date each other. I know a
oh
lot of
yeah, yeah,
I know a
but
lot of trans couples where they've kind of
yeah,
both exited from dating people who aren't trans, I guess, because it's easier to
I
date a
think
trans person in a way.
well, it's easier to socialize that way,
It's
isn't it?
easy to
Because
socialize, and it's
you're
easier
gonna
to,
meet
and you can
you're gonna
talk
meet
about
more
issues, and
trans.
you both understand what the issue is, because it does make things a lot easier in that sense.
Yeah, but for me, that's not really on the table because,
No, I know.
like, I'm not. I do have a type of person that I like, I suppose, when it comes to women. But I mean, I say that, but it's because and when it comes to men, I mean, it's like, I don't know where I'm going with this,
A
but
different type.
like, it's very random, because I
See,
don't have.
here's a
It's,
funny
so
story. A funny story.
whoever
Okay,
to,
so
yeah, go on.
I was at a wedding in Manchester. I think it's about a year and a half ago now, and it was a trans woman marrying their long term cis partner. Okay,
Right.
so obviously I was a guest. And there was other trans women there as guests, and it was
Yeah.
it was a Scottish wedding in a posh hotel in Manchester. So there was a lot of Scottish guys in kilts with sporrans.
Yeah. Oh yeah, one of them.
So one of them. So I was getting a lot of attention from Scottish guys coming over to me
In
for some
kilt.
reason. I don't know why. Who knows? Maybe they were drunk. Yeah, because there's a lot of drinking goes on at Scottish weddings. Not that I'm stereotyping Scottish weddings in any way.
You're going to get us in trouble,
I
Vicky,
know. I'm not sure I'm going with this.
with our Caledonian contingent.
But there was this one guy who had this really attractive sporran.
Ooh.
Yes. And it was like a furry sporran. It was very nice to stroke the sporran. So
Fairy sporran. Like a fairy
that's a furry
sporran,
sporran. Yeah, a furry sporran.
my fairy sporran mother. It was a
So
fairy.
this was kind of weird for me at the time. It was like, okay, why am I stroking this man's sporran?
Oh my God, Vicky.
You know what I mean? It's like, it was a
Why have you
sporran.
never told me this?
It's outside of the kilt. It's not inside. And then there was a kind of moment where there was kind of like a bit of an educational thing going on, because there's like out of the sporran comes all kinds of tools. You know, it's like, what the hell? Well, like things that people keep in their sporrans.
I didn't think there was anything in there.
Yeah, it's like a little bag. It has a little
condoms and lube.
Well, I don't know about that, but there was like, you keep your money in there, you keep your keys. There's all kind of stuff in there. But this was like, you know, it's like, it was enjoyable. It was like, I was attracted to this.
So do you think what is it? The kilt that was turning you on?
I don't know.
Sporran?
It was the guy. I think it was the guy himself. He was kind of like quite a. It would be the kind of guy I would go on a date with, because he was kind of funny. Right. He was interesting.
Yeah.
You know, so I guess the sporran was just like the extra bit of entertainment.
Well, that's an interesting bit of flirtation, I must say.
It was very strange.
And how far did it go?
That was it. This was at the table in the restaurant. That's as far as it went.
Right.
It wasn't just one guy either. There was like, I mean, maybe they were talking about me in the background, saying, "Oh, that one over there, she likes sporrans." I don't know, but anyway.
You've got a reputation now.
I have. Since then, the two people I was there at the wedding with have reminded me of that situation many times. So it's a bit of a joke. It's an ongoing joke now.
Well, I've been in a bar. I remember being in a place once in Manchester, and a guy came over to me, and this guy says, "I'm just coming over because my mate wants to know if you're trans." Like, this is something that I hit on this sort of briefly before.
Yeah.
And this. So I'm going to flesh this story out a bit for you now. so it comes over, and are you trans? And I was like, well, it depends who wants to know, really. It's like, because I can't see you, mate. And why is your mate not coming over here to tell me or talk to me? So that was like my kind of response to it.
Was he a chicken?
And I thought, they're talking about me over there, and I just wish I could have heard what they were saying.
Yeah.
Because, like, so I'm going back to that idea of like, do you think that guy with the sporran is talking to you because he knows you're trans, so he's directing attention to his crotch?
Well, he must have known I was trans, because we were at a trans wedding, right? Yeah. And there was trans women invited to the wedding, and he would have been 100%.
So he's a chaser.
He would have been 100% in the know that I was trans, I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, maybe he's a chaser. We've not spoken about chasers, but yeah, maybe he's a chaser. Maybe he likes to chase trans women. I don't know.
Yeah, well, you get them.
Yeah, so maybe we're a bit of a fetish category for him. I don't know.
Well, that goes back.
And then the other thing was he was drunk too. So
objectification. And I mean, I think if you're on a night out and you kind of, you've got a few drinks.
But it wasn't offensive in any way. It was enjoyable. It wasn't like he was being nasty or anything.
I know. I wasn't suggesting it was anything, wrong, and he was doing anything wrong. But I'm saying
it was just a flirtation, really. It was just a bit of a flirting thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting though. So is that your only dalliance with a sporran?
Well, that's the only Scottish wedding I've been to. I'm prepared to go.
Maybe you should invite me to a few Scottish weddings. Seeing as I am a monarch.
So I intend to go to a few more Scottish weddings because of sporrans.
What was Monarch of the Glen? What am I on about? I don't know where I've heard that. Monarch of the Glen. What was that?
Monarch of the Glen. I'm not sure.
Oh, I might have watched it or something on the telly. Anyway, so we've touched a little bit there on flirting and dating. So your next step.
You give me instructions. Oh my God.
If the date's going well, right? So
I thought you were giving me advice there for a minute. Go on, carry on.
No, don't ever take any advice from me, right? This is not advice. This podcast is never advice.
No,
just guideline.
Whatever we say, do the opposite, and that's the advice I would give.
So like, say I've been on dates and like the guy's nice. He's all right. He's good. He's got a good chatter. He's got a good chin wag. And I'm thinking, do you
like a good chat up line then? Do you like to be chatted up like that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like I'm being chatted up.
Well,
That's
you know
different.
what I mean. Like a good.
I like to be.
You enjoy a good line. Let's say.
I can sit back and listen to somebody waffle on about their life or whatever. Yeah, I
Yeah,
love it
yeah, yeah.
if they're interesting. But so because the thing is with like,
But they have to be interesting, don't they? They have to be engaging and funny. I
yeah,
think. I
the
think that's
thing with
important.
being with me and the body I've got for any intimacy beyond kissing and like maybe a bit of heavy petting and all that. So you go in and you know where it's going. You've got to prepare for sex. It's not something you can just say, yeah, I'll do it. And it's not something you can just get yourself into. You have to, because if you're gonna have, let's just spit it out. If you're gonna have anal sex, you've got to prepare for that. You don't go into that lightly. So you've
Okay.
got a few things going on in your head, aren't you? You're
I'm
going to
gonna
say,
give
well,
you a
where's
yellow card for that because it's not 9 o'clock.
People can say anal sex, Vicky. It's not. It's not. Anyway, if Cara Delevingne can say it on
Yeah,
BBC
so I'm just
iPlayer, I
joking.
can
I'm just
say it
joking.
here.
I'm just joking.
So
I've
that
got this, yeah.
that's one of my it's one of my main worries when I go on a date or anything. If I think some sex is going to be on the cards, I'm like, oh fuck's sake! Now I've got a douche.
I
And
mean,
that's
we
how.
don't need to
And
go
that
into
is
the details of
no,
what
I
the
know, I
preparation
know, but this is
might
what I'm saying.
entail.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, let's not go into any more detail than that. But what I'm saying is that is a problem
yeah,
for me because
it's part of what you have to go
I
through, I
can't
guess.
be bothered. I can't be bothered most of the time, and I just honestly,
Yeah,
so, and obviously because I'm not gonna be having any operations in any of that time
mm.
frame. You know what I mean? So, like, I'm wondering how the man perceives that sometimes. Like, if
Yeah.
is the guy interested in?
Okay, but
Because
if the guy
for
knows you're trans and knows the situation,
yeah, but
he knows what he's getting into, doesn't he?
I think for a lot of men though, it's about the penetration. It's about that thing. So if you can't do that, or you have to prepare for it, and then maybe do something another day or whatever, and that spontaneity element isn't there, is it? So you either go into it thinking, right, this is going to happen, or it's I don't know. That's just how I
Yeah. Okay.
feel.
So, I mean, what you've touched on there is something else that I wanted to talk about. I know we've almost reached our hour, but we can keep going. Um, we'd spoken about this before, and it was the effects of HRT treatment on trans people in terms of how it affects your sexual
Yeah,
function,
yeah.
let's say.
So, you know, I've heard loads of conflicting
Mm.
reports on this because some trans women will say, "Oh, I've been hornier." Some will say, "I've completely lost my libido." Some will say that I'm just about normal now because they were like completely sex obsessed before and very, very sexualized and positive about with it. Not nothing, it's all good. But then when the hormones kick in and like that can changes people
Yeah. I
differently.
mean, the effects
So
of HRT on trans women is, you're gonna suffer a lot of shrinkage, which may be a good thing for a trans woman.
see, I
But
haven't
some
had
people
that.
do, some people don't, and you
Mine's got
may,
bigger.
you know, you sure you're using the right stuff?
No, no, I'm being facetious,
You're
but
being
I know
facetious,
it's
but
not
and then
affecting me in that way. But
yeah, it affects your libido. It affects your ability to use that piece of equipment. Let's say, some affecting more than others. So that kind of plays into the whole relationship thing as well. And then you
yeah,
just mentioned surgery, and the decision to have or not have surgery also kind of plays into what's going on in the relationship world as well. Because if you have surgery, we will obviously then you're not going to be able to
talking
use the piece of equipment you've lost, right?
you're talking lower surgery.
Yeah, lower surgery. Yeah.
Mm.
So yeah,
Well,
there's lots
I
of
have no
implications.
intention of having any surgery, so I'm completely at one with my templistic body, and I'm interested in yoga, and that's how I center myself in my own body. And that's
Hmm.
got not mean that's not whatever anybody wants to do with their body is up to them. But
Absolutely.
but if I get into a relationship with a guy, if he thinks that's going to be something that's going to be happening, he's got it mistaken. So
No, but it kind of plays into your what's happening relationship wise. Kind of plays into
do you think you
what
should
you
tell
do.
somebody
I don't know.
if you Because at what point in a relationship would that become a conversation? I know somebody might, if they've, I've had it come up straight away.
Well, I mean, it
Sometimes,
could come up straight away. It depends
like
what your
somebody has
intention is,
literally
I
asked
guess.
me, and I don't know how to put this in a kind of way that is not. I mean, somebody's literally asked me, do I we stand up to we
Hmm.
on a date? And I'm like, well, and they're asking me about my body on a date. They're asking me about whether my breasts are real on
On
a
a
date,
first
and I
on a
don't.
first date.
Yeah, yeah, and that
Yeah.
is not uncommon
That's
as a
not
trans
appropriate,
woman.
is it?
And maybe it's just the kind of people I'm meeting. I don't know, but this is not uncommon. So the way that we are expected to talk about our bodies as trans women is different. They wouldn't ask a woman about any if they. I mean, they might be complete arseholes, but they wouldn't say, "Are you going to have a boob job?" to a woman necessarily.
No,
And I think,
you wouldn't say that on a
well,
first date, would you?
that
I mean, that's totally.
but because transition is kind of seen as part of who we are, which it
Mm.
isn't really. It's just they'll ask those kind of
No, but
questions, and
I think
sometimes,
most people, when they hear about trans people, they assume that surgery is something that will happen.
well, they'll assume all sorts of things
Well,
about
yeah,
you,
but
but
that's kind of an assumption that I think a lot of people make. You know, that you've had surgery or you're going to have surgery. I mean, I don't think a lot of people who aren't trans consider the fact that, well, maybe this person's never going to have surgery or doesn't want to have surgery. I don't think
and
it's not always considered that position. I don't think.
and as we've seen recently, a lot of mistakes can be made if you try and legitimize your trans identity by
Yeah,
saying it's a biological thing,
yeah,
like
exactly.
trying to make out that there's a biological basis for your trans
Mm,
identity. Like, so if you had certain operations, that's not going to make you any more or less trans.
no, exactly.
You know, it might make you feel like you're in tune with your body or whatever you want to do to, but I'm
I mean, the
the
reason they give the surgeries is for treating gender dysphoria.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
So that's going to make you feel, whatever the most positive outcome is for that individual, fine, great.
yeah.
But for me personally, that's never going to be an issue because I don't think of myself in that way. But
Mm.
what was I going to say about yeah? So like when you're on a date with somebody, these things can come up, because they want to know what your body functions because they might want to know they want to have sex with you,
Yeah, so
and
they're
that
going to ask
and if
questions based on what they're thinking, aren't they? Like whatever's
yeah,
going
and
through
if
that person's mind, they're going to be wanting answers to those questions, which may, in a lot of cases, be inappropriate questions right from the start.
hmm. But
Mm.
I do sometimes on the dating apps. Like I don't reveal too much, and I see which way the conversation goes.
But
If
really,
it
you
dri
think about it, as a trans person, you shouldn't give away any more information than a non-trans person would. I mean,
well, so,
why is there more
have you heard of
expectation as for us to have to provide all these answers? You know, is everybody under that same expectation? No.
have you heard of this phrase? Well, word being a trap, and it's when somebody is luring a man on, like it's like a sort of false
Mm.
pretenses. So to think of a trans woman as being duplicitously attracting a man, and then suddenly is going to find out there's a
Yeah.
penis. It's like that's almost as ridiculous as the lesbians thinking, like saying that um, trans women are forcing them to be into relationships with them. It's like, you know, I've never been in that situation where somebody doesn't know. Well, if you're going to go that far with somebody, you're pretty much going to have had that conversation,
Yeah, but
or they
you
should
shouldn't.
know
I
enough
mean,
about you.
if you're dating a cis woman and you're not going to ask these questions, right? You're not going to be this intrusive with your questioning. So I would
No,
say,
but it's just
try
something that it's just
try and
yeah,
do
it's just
that
something
if you
that's
date a
happened.
trans woman. Try and treat them with the same respect. I think that's what I'm saying.
Mm.
You know, don't have those intrusive conversations unless it's something that that you're both prepared to talk about. I mean, you shouldn't be going into a
Yeah.
relationship with or a date, with that list of questions in your mind. It's
But
not.
on the other hand, when I've been flirtatious, when I've been like made the first move on a dating app, I've literally just said, "Are you into trans women?" Because I just want to get that conversation out of the way now. I don't want it to be something after the elephant in the room. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
So
Yeah, I mean that's an approach. So get it out, get out in the open right at the beginning.
When I'm asking that, I'm doing.
But
it
that's you.
knowingly.
That's you doing that. It's not them. It's you. You're doing that. You know.
Yeah, but so yeah, I think, and another thing about the relationships and dating as trans is like you're gonna meet people who are very shady because men are shady and they do meet people behind the partner's backs. And I've had people say to me, "Oh, my wife doesn't do this." I was like, "Well, maybe she should come out with us. Maybe she should come out with me." You know what I mean? What are you telling me this for? So it's like they sometimes fess things up. So it's like I've become some kind of confessional where they say, "Oh my God."
Is this because you're trans, or is it just because you're another woman?
No, it's because well, it might be both, but they'll say, "Oh God, I've been thinking about doing this for ages," or "I've been thinking about, sex like this," and I was like, "Well, don't build it up into something massive because it might be rubbish. don't make me like." Your basis for all your fantasies.
Yeah, let's put Freda on a big pedestal here.
Yeah, because I can't be that. Well, I can be that if somebody wants that kind of thing. But because like in that whole fetishy thing, I think people role play, don't they?
Well, yeah, I mean,
sometimes
what we're talking about here is dating and in the real world. But if you kind of then ask those same questions in the fetish club world, it's a bit different, isn't it? It's because it's like the expectation is different.
Not necessarily, but
you know what you're going when you go to a fetish club. You know what you're going for, and you know what everybody else is going for. It's a bit different than going to Starbucks coffee shop with someone on a date. It's like
unless you've got a fetish for coffee.
Unless you've got a coffee fetish, which I probably have at this point.
Cover me in these Arabica beans, baby. And whatever. So yeah. But what the point I was trying to make there is that we role play a bit, don't we? When we go on dates.
Yes.
It's sort of a weird combination of an interview and an audition. Because when you talk to somebody, you kind of sussing out, if you've not met them before or you've only talked to them online, you're kind of doing that sussing out thing, aren't you? And then they're doing it to you, and you can see their eyes moving, and the way that body language thing becomes really important. And if you know what I mean? Everything's a bit more heightened than if you're just meeting your mate for a pint down the pub.
Yeah.
So, because it's not a relaxing situation, is it, to meet a stranger? Or somebody, like when I say stranger, you probably
on a first date. Yes, very stressful.
For a bit. It's gonna be dating. I mean, we talked about it being dangerous, but most of the time, like I said, it's pretty boring. that's
probably a good
reality.
thing. It's probably a good thing, to be honest.
Yeah, but I've not been on it. You know what? You're making me want to go on a date because I do actually like sitting in front of somebody. Because I've been on dates, right?
When was the last time you were on a date then? When was your last date? Proper date.
Do you mean like a proper date where you
sit down? A proper date, not a fetish club situation. A proper date with someone that you've met and gone out and had a meal with and enjoyed yourselves, and that's it.
Probably last November.
You mean 2022?
Yeah.
All right. So that's fairly recent then.
Yeah. But the thing is, I can't really talk about that because I still know that.
No, we don't have to talk about it. But I'm just saying, when was the last one?
The chances of me hearing this are very slim. But yeah, so I like that because I was very conscious when I'm on that date that, blimey, this guy's not spoke for half an hour and I've never shut up.
Well, Freda, you are famous for your talking and interrupting, so yeah, I can understand why the guy was quiet for 40 minutes or whatever it was.
But then because
he's probably just sat there enjoying the one-sided conversation.
He was very quiet, so I
did you intimidate him in some way?
I had to fill the room with
did
noise.
You intimidate him?
No, I didn't intimidate him. I just
he was just like just didn't speak. So, I mean, I would put that down as a failed date, actually. If I was on a date with someone who didn't speak, that's probably not going too well.
I didn't even notice. I thought I was doing a podcast.
You thought you were doing a podcast. Oh my God.
I thought he was just interested in everything I had to say.
You just thought you were on
wise,
TV or something, like talking.
Just wise and wonderful, full
Yeah.
of insightful things. And I thought he was just nodding along, going, "Oh my God, this bitch is a genius." And he's going, "Please."
Was there a
shoot me
second
now."
date? I need to inquire. Was there a second date?
I still see him now and again.
Okay.
But he was. Yeah, no, it's all right. I mean, I can't talk about it.
No detail, no names, no details. What was his name?
So what else? What else can we talk about apart from? Well, I'll hook you up if you want. What else can we talk about apart from?
Well, I think we've exhausted the topic.
I'm exhausted.
The topic for this evening. We've gone through quite a few things there.
How long have we been on?
An hour and 15.
We've not had many chatters, have we? We've not had much social media interaction.
There's quite a few people have watched. We've had a few interactions, but it's the first time. Thank you for those people who have written comments, Sarah, Rebecca, and Durham Red. Yeah, it's good. We're going to do it again, and hopefully we get some more.
I hope I didn't overstep the mark too much on the talking about certain sexual acts and. I don't know how YouTube works with censoring and things like that.
I don't know.
Nothing I've said was explicit, really.
No,
it's just like
talking
about having sex and stuff. I think that's just a perfectly normal.
Well, it was in
to me anyway. I'm very
normal
positive,
relationship talk, wasn't it? It wasn't anything more than that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And so then on Sunday we're going to do the normal show, which is like the run through of the news events for the week. 5:30 on Sunday if you want to come and join. And I think, are we doing that live, Freda, or are we going to do that recorded? I don't know.
We can do a recording if you want. I mean, we should still do these live. I've been thinking about doing Twitter Spaces.
Yeah, problem with those is there's no video, and it's hard to see who you're talking to. But
yeah, this is the thing. I think we're just kind of still learning how to do this. So
so it was an experiment.
Any feedback? And we can make it more
if people want to suggest a topic, we can go with that as well. Whatever. Yeah, we're open to any ideas.
Well, we knew we wouldn't be massively inundated with messages because we've been a bit random, haven't we, in our times we come on and
nobody's expecting us to come on today at 7 anyway.
We're not very consistent. Let's just put it that way.
No, we're not.
So yeah, thanks for listening. I hope I've not revealed too much about my sex life.
Well, I guess we'll find out when people start talking about it. So anyway, don't forget to subscribe.
Don't forget to subscribe.
I'm pointing into what looks like a green screen on my one screen, but I'm actually pointing.
Am I pointing in the right direction?
You're pointing the wrong way, Freda. You need to point the other way. No, the other direction. There you go.
Hey.
I press the magic button. It disappeared now. You see, it's gone.
Right, fantastic. Right, good night, everybody.
Yes, thank you for watching. Please subscribe. Please like. Please come back again. Hope we didn't bore you. Hope it was an interesting conversation. We'll see you on Sunday. So, bye for now.
Hi,